You are listening to Eastman's Flycast, an adventure fly fishing specific podcast covering travel, tactics, and next level insight. Now your host, Brian Barney.
Yo, what's happening, guys? Brand new Eastmans on the Fly podcast. So this is a fly fishing podcast hosted by yours truly, Brian Barney. And today, my guest for the show is Dillon Ness. So I met Dillon a handful of years ago, and we've kept in touch ever since. We keep trying to get out for an adventure, fishing or hunting, and we're going to make it happen this spring or this summer. But you can tell me and Dillon are instantly best friends. We're just cut from the same cloth. And Dillon, he is one of the best guys I know at catching giant browns and giant rainbows, and he targets them in these big rivers. And so we dive in depth on the podcast about his streamer fishing, both fishing deep runs from the bank and what he's fishing for out of the boat. We talk colors, we talk good vibes, but we just dive way in depth of fishing streamers. And if you listening to the podcast, you guys probably know that lately I've just been nuts about fishing streamers. And I've always fished them out of a boat and throw them on, but lately just targeting these big fish, I've been having so much fun. And after this podcast, on Sunday, I got out with my dad and we got out on a system, and man, I got him to eat black. So you'll hear on the podcast, I talked to Dillon about his color choices, and I was sitting in the first color choice I ran was a black. I probably picked it up from the podcast, but just killed him on Sunday. I think I hooked and landed 5 really nice brown trout on a black, so just super fun. But really into streamer fishing here lately, and so this is the perfect podcast, the perfect conversation to have. Respect the heck out of Dillon. Guy just turns up more big trout than anybody I know. So just a great conversation. We'll get right into it. I just want to mention this week on Eastman's Elevated. Eastman's Elevated is the hunting podcast. So we do Western hunting on that podcast. I just like to mention it in case somebody on this podcast hasn't heard of that one. But this week on Eastman's Elevated, I've got a couple of the guys from the Onyx crew, and this is back from the Western Hunting Expo, and a couple guys that I really like. It's Zach and Dillon. I've known Zach for years, and then I believe Scott Reekers also sits in on the conversation, so there's 4 of us. But we really get talking mule deer and Montana mule deer and how to hunt high-pressure areas. It's just a great conversation. So that'll be up on the Eastman's Elevated side of things. And with that, let's get this thing rolling. So Eastman's on the fly. Today, my guest is Dillon Ness. I'm your host, Brian Barney. Here we go. Yeah, good for you. Well, I'd say we just get right into the podcast. We're already chatting, so I've got Dillon Ness on the line. Dillon, you get the most out of Montana. So you're located on the east side, right?
Yep, over here in Billings. So
okay.
I do a lot of my fishing on this side of the state for now. So
yeah, thanks again for jumping on the call, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. No, I'm been looking forward to it. I'm pretty pumped. I couldn't sleep last night. It was like Christmas morning, being able to wake up and talk fishing with you. So I'm excited to get going.
Man, yeah, well, how killer. Yeah, so we've become buddies over the past couple years, but we're yet to connect. We're on different parts of the state, different sides of the state, and so we try to shoot each other a line when we're going through or when we're going over to the other side to do something fun. But we'll get connected here and do some fishing.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Like you said, no, it's just let each other know when we're going through, and if it works, it works. But, no, I think we got some stuff that we might get worked out this spring and go on a little adventure, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, you get the most out of Montana. We were just talking elk and antelope and now talking brown trout. Man, you pulled some giant brown trout out of these streams of Montana. You target them, these big fish, and targeting them mostly with streamers, huh?
Yeah. I like to, I like to throw it dry every once in a while and do some nymphing, but I love throwing big streamers. And, I think it's just kind of how I've evolved over here on the east side of the state with, the Yellowstone and that. And it's like you catch one of those big browns one time, and I feel like you're hooked, especially when you get to see them eat a 5 to 7 inch streamer. It just, for me, it doesn't get any better than that, honestly.
It doesn't. Yeah, I'm with you. And you can catch big fish when the eating's really good. When you catch a dry fly hatch really good, the salmon flies or the hopper
Hmm.
hatch, or right now the squallows, you're getting good fish. And I'm all for action and chasing them with the dry fly, but there is like targeting those big fish in the river systems, like the Yellowstone, like you're talking, which is a giant river which just grows giant brown trout.
Oh
And
yeah.
a lot of those trout, they're only eating, bait fish and sculpin and other fish. And so to target them, like you say, once you hook into one of those things, they they're like a one in a million fish, or at least a one in 100,000 fish, that when you hook them and you have that fish on, it's so exciting. And they're not like a standard 20-inch that you can, kind of fight out, but within a minute or so you're gonna surf in. Those big brown trout, they're bulls. They like to pull on you and hold in the hole, and they don't like to come to the net, and they explode when they get close to you. Man, it's so exciting and so fun, just because you want to land them so bad too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like these last couple trips that I've been on, they all, like you said, those big fish will just pull, pull, pull. But then every once in a while, if you're, unfortunate and they get up on top of the water, head shake and roll, and especially when the water's a little bit colder, I feel like they do a little more, belly rolls, like that alligator roll, and that can cause so many issues. But yeah, no, yeah, when you feel that tug, when that one tugs back, or you see them, I mean, that's how I always start out fishing it to where I can see my bug, because that gets my rocks off, being able to see one of those big fish come up and just smoke it. But yeah, the fight is never the same, but they're definitely heavy, and they do not want to come to the net.
Man, we just have such a great ecosystem here in Montana. There's so many river systems that those big fish can come out of, it seems. But you don't catch them every day. You got to spend a lot of time on the water to find one of those big browns. It's days on the water. Um, so I imagine you put in your days on these holds.
Yeah.
It's like once you start to target these fish, you start to look for the holding water that'll hold a big fish, and that's both out of the boat and stopping and working these big holes. I see you working the double hander. I don't see like a lot of guys fishing for brown trout with the double hander, or rainbows, or whatever the case.
Hmm.
So I'd imagine, like me, you're starting to target these fish in these bigger, deeper holes that are really tough to fly fish to.
Yeah, yeah. What's funny, Brian, is the other day when I was listening to you and Todd, he said that you have pet fish, and I fish a system here out of town just a little ways, and it has a low population, but I fish it religiously. And I always joke with my buddies, and when we get on the river and that, it's like I am always wanting to stop when I see something that really piques my interest, or like this fish is in there. But going back to that two-hander and that system that I fish, I catch a majority of my fish when we anchor up and get out and I'm on the wade, just because I can really target that spot, that little stretch. And I mean, in a lot of it, I mean, as well as anybody, they're in a section and they're there for a reason, and they can just, stuff doesn't get away from them. And with that two-hander, I like to cover, in this wintertime, we're moving into spring transition, but like during the winter, I really like to fish that, just because typically those winter runs are a little bit deeper, big boulders and that down there. And now those fish, I might not know the specific spot that they're holding, but I want to cover as much of that run as I can and as slow as I can. So I actually, this is kind of funny, I just picked up the spey rod this last December. So I was out there blowing anchors and just trying to get it to where I needed to be. And finally I had a buddy that guides in Alaska, and he finally got me straightened out and everything, and then I could really hit those spots, and that's when that tug started to happen for me. So it was pretty awesome.
Man, it is so effective at covering that big water, but it's an art fishing streamers, and I'd like to get into it, out of the boat and on
Hmm.
the wade, and it also applies, it applies to all fishing too, whether that's nymphs or dry flies. Like, it's just holding water or where fish are.
Yeah.
But yeah, these holes that you're talking about, they're these big giant holes that, they may go for 100, 200 yards and be 100,
Mm-hmm.
200 yards wide. And it's, inside corners. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the right depth and the right speed. And
Yep.
when I find that right depth and right speed, which changes throughout the summer, as the water warms up, they tend to get in that faster water. But it's the wintertime with streamers. You're not getting a ton of them chasing. You're not seeing 20 fish a day out of a drift boat chasing. You got to swing it right in front of that one fish's face that wants to eat that. But big fish will still eat it in the winter and the spring and cold water. You just have to get it by them. And so I love what you're saying with that double hand working the water, because now I'm starting to look at these big holes and I get in them and I'm tossing a couple upstream up in that, the current line, and I'm stripping down on those ones. And then I'm starting to swing this bug through, and it seems like the farther downstream you cast, like the less depth you get. The farther upstream, the more time it has to get down and then swing across that run. And so I'll swing it a couple times from where I'm at, and I'll try one of the, just a dead swing. And then I'll try one where I'll kind of pop it a little bit, pop and strip, pop and strip, pop and strip across like the top end of that hole, and then just take a couple steps down and a couple steps down. And it just seems like you bump in to these great big fish in these giant holes that nobody's really fishing to that effectively. So, like, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I'm really into it lately, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
fun way to fish, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and no, and don't worry about going on tangents because I'm the same way. You might have to tell me to stop, but yeah, no, those big holes, and like you said, the pace. That's one thing in the springtime and in the winter. That is the one thing I think I look for the most. I mean, obviously you need to have some depth, but the pace, because and we can get into this later, but I have a certain way that I think big fish eat. I don't necessarily think a lot of those big fish chase super hard, especially when it's cold. I think they're pretty opportunistic as far as see something coming. And I mean, we've all seen it, that fish that comes up and comes down for your streamer, that's in the seam or in that edge, that just comes up, comes down, or he rolls or takes a big swipe. But then we're like, where'd he go? And he doesn't chase out like that 15 to 17 inch fish will chase you out of the pocket. But with that two hand, I like you said, the upstream mends. The one thing that I do occasionally, if I'm not having any luck and I just feel like they are in there, I'll go a little unconventional and I will, snap tee that thing upstream into the seam, throw a downstream mend, and like basically dredge it. And surprisingly, it's pretty darn effective. So
Yeah.
totally unconventional.
Totally unconventional. Well, that's what I know. Yeah. I'm not. Sometimes it just works, and you just got to get that fly to those fish, and sometimes unconventional works, and sometimes I'm also surprised at where big fish will come out of, or where fish will come out of. Sometimes somebody just sees the water a little different than me and starts fishing that seam upriver or something, and it's reading that water of telling where those big fish are. And so as I'm going down the river, I'm just looking for that depth and that speed, like you say. And I love what you talked about, how speed is so important. There is just such a speed and texture to the water, nervous chop, that when you see it, you're just like, man, I think that's where a big fish lives. Or just like you stated, a great big seam and a giant run. Man, that just it's like a alpha spot, and then alpha fish usually holds that spot.
Definitely. And I think, those big fish, I was told by this old boy one time on this small creek, and I was walking up, and I was fairly new to fly fishing. And, I was catching fish here and there, and I was throwing, I think, a small prince at that time. I was just nymphing. And this guy, small creek, and early spring, cold water. And I got to talking with this guy, and he was, like check nymphing or Euro nymphing, without an indicator. And he was talking to me about where big fish hold. And this little creek does have big fish in it. And he's like, these big fish in the spring are going to hold at the first available spot in their holding water, because they are going to consume the most calories. And whether this is true or not, I've believed in it. And, say when you're on a drift or when you get out on a wade, seeing those big, eddy boulders on the bank, and instead of hitting the backside of the slack, I always make sure to hit that front side, just because of what he said to me. And, it's paid off. It always registers when it happens. But like, I always go back to that, but it's like that first available spot in the holding water, that big fish, I always in my mind see him there.
Oh, yeah, that's a great tip. That front side of that boulder spot. So you see big fish that'll hold right in there because they can get so much food right there. They're right at the head of the run.
Yeah, and it's like, when you slap your bug down in front of it, and I always try and go right at the front side instead of the behind the boulder. I try and go right at the front side, and so when I, kind of swim that bug past that rock, a lot of the times when I see him, it's not so much of an eat right there. It's just that slow spin, and he just boom hits it like, that fish will eat it like that. He'll just see it as something dead floating by him, and I've had a lot of luck like that. Now, granted, they come out of everywhere. I mean, it always seems like when you're having a slow day and you're getting your butt kicked, because part of catching big fish, in my opinion, is, you're going to have to take your days and you're going to have to take it on the chin and just wear it. But it's always when you're snoozing or they catch you sleeping, and then all of a sudden, boom, that fish is there. And usually out of the most unlikely water that you haven't been hunting all day.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. So hunting big fish is not for the faint of heart. You just don't get as much action. Sometimes in the summer they're really chasing streamers hard and you'll get a ton of action, but a lot of fishing for these big fish and targeting these big fish is not catching. And it's going down and it's doing everything right. It's fishing all the right runs, all the right seams. It's throwing it, in all the spots as you're going down, like you just mentioned, swimming and through the boulders. And not only is it the swim in the strip coming back, it's your angle to the bank like we were talking about earlier, upstream and downstream. And then there's also an art to fishing that thing in deep runs going down out of a boat too, which, to get that thing down deep where those fish are living, where, you can get one to eat down in there. But you're absolutely right. Like fishing for those big fish, you do everything right, you fish all the big runs, and you still might not get a fish. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but eventually you're going to tie on to a 2-footer somewhere, just a great big
Yeah.
specimen of a brown trout that, and once to see an alpha fish like that hunt, and we fall in love with these trout, we fall in love with everything we're doing. So like a prime specimen brown trout is about one of the prettiest things I can ever imagine seeing. And just like being able to hook one, and you just target these fish so much. When you hook one, play them out, land them to the net, like the thrill and the excitement, and then to just sit there and bathe with them for just a little bit before you release them back. Like, man, that's what it's all about. Like, it's so cool to have this deal right around us that we love so much, and to be able to see that thing happen and make it happen and read that water correctly, believe in it, and then catch one. Dude, it's like that's what it's all about. That's my Super
Uh-oh.
Bowl for sure, and I know it's yours too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like you're saying, we are so lucky. I mean, from over here, heading your way, I mean, you can stop at about every creek, river, whatever, and you've got a chance, and if you read the water right, and I'm a big believer in, you've got to see it happening. Like, you've got to believe in it, because like you were saying, you can throw it in there, make a cast after cast, the perfect cast, vary your strips, swim it, swing it, whatever. He might not want to come up and eat it today, but you have to keep believing until you literally get back in your pickup, take your waders off, take your boots off, and your rod's, broke down and in your tube. You got to believe until then. And that, to me, is, I don't consider myself, I feel like I'm a pretty fishy dude, but I'm nothing special. But I believe in it, and I believe in the water that I want to fish and the bugs I want to fish. And yeah, we are so lucky to have the rivers and the ecosystems that we do in Montana. It's just, it's something special. And like you said, it is my Super Bowl every single day I get out there, whether I put him in the net, get to see him, lose him, whatever. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, you bring up one of the most important parts of fly fishing that I don't think I've talked about on the podcast yet, is that good vibes catch fish. Like, you have to believe in it. And if you don't believe in it wholeheartedly, it just never happens. I mean, like you say, sometimes you get surprised, but you're fishing fishy water believing in that bug. But yeah, you have to be going down fishing with confidence, just thinking your bug is fishing right, thinking you're going to catch a fish, thinking he might be laying in that run. Because the moment you lose hope and you're kind of half-heartedly, you're just not fishing it the same. So good vibes catch fish, and you can see it with people, you can see it with your buddies, and even see it in yourself. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, I state that, but to tell you the truth, when I really start believing is when I start seeing them or start catching them. And so when I see it in action and it starts to work, I believe in it more and I catch more, But good vibes catch fish.
Oh yeah, 100%. And along with that, good vibes. Obviously, the guys you fish with, that's why I'm looking forward to getting you out and being with you, and maybe one of my buddies or whatnot. But good vibes, it feels right. You feel like, oh, today's the day. Every time we get back, anchor up, take a drink of water, hang out for a second. It's like, okay, we're back. We're back. Here it comes. And along with that, to keep the good vibes rolling, I mean, you need the guy on the sticks. That's why I'm so fortunate, I feel like, because I get to fish with guys who are super skilled on the sticks. They can handle the rod, obviously, but being on the sticks, if you're not catching fish, it's like the guy on the sticks. I always feel like if we're not moving a fish and it's been a mile or so and I'm on the sticks, I'm like, gosh, I need to do something different for the guys. Like I need to get them in the water. I need to back row a little harder on this next eddy, or the vibes, keeping the vibes up. And the guy on the sticks, I feel like he controls the vibes of the boat, and yeah, seeing it happen, hunting your bug. Oh, it all needs to come together, but I'm a believer. The vibes and believing in it. That's big. That's a big part of the cake right there.
Yeah, you bring up fishing with buddies. Yeah, you're so right. The enjoyment level is so high too. Like, it is so fun to be laughing with buddies, but your point is on the sticks, and it is a team effort. And I feel as much a part of that team when I'm on the sticks as I'm on the rod. And you always feel so fortunate to be in the front of the boat, because it's the best way to look at these western rivers. You get the front of the boat standing up there, get to look at the lines, throw your bug in. But the other part of that is the rower has to be in it. He has to get you to the spots, or you're just not fishing effectively. You don't even have a chance at it. And the guy on the sticks has to be getting you to the right spots, reading water, and really it's the guy on the sticks' jobs to choose the lines of where he's going. Like, sometimes you converse back and forth, or the guy in front knows the run better, or a way he wants to fish it. But for the most part, on the sticks, your job is to find the line and keep the boat from going over the fish, and keeping them a distance where they can cast and retrieve. And then once you hook a fish, then it's both people too, because the other guy's on the sticks as well, trying to keep tight line on it, not let the fish get too far away, like the whole deal. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
it doesn't get any funner than sharing somebody that's passionate about it. And what you lack in rowing skill, you can make up for in effort. Just pulling on those sticks, pulling on those sticks is such a big part of it. Just giving that guy as many looks at the bank as you can give him. So yeah, man, good vibes catch fish. That's a given. And keeping spirits up too, like laughing and joking, razzing your buddies. It's the funnest thing you can do, and it just keeps all the spirits high.
Oh, it does, and it keeps you in the zone too. Yeah, like we've been saying, and being in the zone, you can still have fun, laugh, joke, and then, but the guy on the point, or in the back, it's like it keeps you in the zone, it keeps you engaged, and it's awesome. Like this last trip, I think it was, it wasn't last weekend, but the weekend before. My buddy that I do a ton of my fishing with, we went out with another one of our friends, and he's a little bit newer to the game and hadn't been on the stone yet. And he was rowing and stuff and working hard. But like coming into corners and that, you got to stay off the corners and all that. And so he was working while we stopped for lunch. And then my buddy Chun, he's like, yeah, I'll get on the sticks. And I'm like, no way, I got to go to the front. Because I was in the back. And we always got this rotation, and we're coming up on, we call it the cliffs. And usually, we do. It just depends on the day, but we'll do like a 2-fish hot switch, like, and we literally will net it. The one guy will jump on the seat, the other guy will jump in the front, and sometimes take his rod and just start fishing it. Well, bless Chune's heart, we had like the most amazing mile I think I ever had on the Yellowstone. I mean, it was like you couldn't keep them off, and it was just it stemmed from switching out at lunch, getting on the sticks, and just the stoke was high, and yeah, it was awesome. But he let me, I don't know, catch 5, 6, 7 fish in a mile. And he just like, don't leave a heater, man. Never leave a heater.
It's so fun too. I can't stop laughing when I get into good fishing like that too, because it's just like this is ridiculous. You work so hard and go so many days for it, and then when you're really catching them like that, just fun and it's when you're catching them like that, man. It's just it's not long before you're going to see a giant one. When they're eating that good, like you just got to put it by a giant's face. And so you just keep fishing so hard and swimming it, just looking for him.
Yeah, when they're flying around like that, it's just like, oh, I get kind of like, not really antsy or nervous, but it's like when they're flying around like that, it's like, oh my goodness, this is just a matter of time and he's going to come out, and on that stretch, I'm not a big fan of fishing eddies, like those big turbulent, we call them suck holes because, those that current just pulls down in those big things. But everybody's always said, oh, there's big fish in those things. And, my buddies have shown me that, yes, there are big fish in those, but I usually turn to the other bank and fish something else. Well, in that mile stretch, we were floating and it's just full of those. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to believe in it. Threw it in one of them. And, I've been the king of the rodeo this spring. I just hook them and have them on for 8-10 seconds and they head shake me or roll me or go into, and it's just, that fish came up and that bug was just floating in that swirl and I was just mending it. And that fish came up, ate it like a shark, like you'd see on National Geographic, out of the water, hook set him in the air, doing front flips, back flips. But like I said, for about 8-10 seconds, who knows? It always feels like an eternity when you have them pop me off. It was devastating, but kept it rolling and got into a few more. So,
gosh, it's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? On the swing or whichever style you're fishing good hooks, and you at least me, I pride myself on finding the right hook and getting into those fish, and I actually don't fish a lot of barbs. I pinch my barbs, a lot, which, you do lose a lot of fish due to that. But you just, like, there's a lot of fish that just pop off. Like you talking about the alligator roll, the head shake, the out of the water, there's so many moves they have. And sometimes you just feel them and they're off. But yeah, that breaks your heart when you have a really good one on and you're fighting them. And a lot of it, too, is the angler, keeping your angle right, your pressure right, making sure you don't hook a reel seat or hook the boat seat or, it is like a rodeo, like you say. When you hook those things and once they know they're hooked, you're in for a couple good runs where you better hold on, And so I love the intensity, pressure-filled moments like that.
Yeah.
Like pressure-filled moments, I have that fish, let's see what I can do with him. And it doesn't always happen. Sometimes he comes off, and it's heartbreaking, and you get better at just accepting it, laughing it off. Like you don't, I don't really get upset anymore. Or, I don't throw my fly rod. Like I'm out there to enjoy myself and enjoy the experience. It is a heartbreaker when you lose one or when it's like missing a big bowl or something. Like it's a heartbreaker. But there's nothing you can really do. Just get back to fishing and just, oh, well, it's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? Some of those things come off.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And, I really used to, back when I was younger, really used to beat myself up and it used to haunt me. And, you always want to see him. You always want to touch him, see how big that adipose is or what, did he have a hook job? But, once they're off, there's nothing you can do. So it's like, you might as well just go find the next one. And yeah, sometimes that's the kind of the hardest part, or at least it was for me for the longest time. It's like, man, you just got to get over it. Cause it's like, then it's just a fish story, so, get after the next one and make it happen. But yeah, getting over it. That's the tough part. Like we said, you got to then just get back in the saddle and let it rip. So.
Yeah, that's all a guy can do. It is. You just can't get upset at it. Like it is a heartbreaker sometimes, or to move a fish, to see him come after your bug, or he chases it, and then he gone. Like you just like that was your chance. It's like, oh man, what a killer. But that's why we like it too, is because it is so challenging, and because it doesn't always happen, and because you can lose fish. It's pretty special when you get to bathe with a great big one. So that's the game we play, and what we accept. But yeah, that is a big part of it when you're young, is getting over losing those big ones, missing those big ones. You just got to move on and catch another one. But
Oh, for sure.
and you talk about, like, we were talking about these giant rivers. You'd mentioned earlier, like, smaller systems. There's some small systems that have some ecosystems that produce giant trout. Like some of my secrets of fishing these streamers, there's a couple wade sections on the Madison that are really good wade fishing that nobody can fish out of a boat, and so these big stretches, you're really effective in them. And same thing with these smaller streams. Like you can get a drift boat down them, but sometimes you're not very effective fishing them. And also wade fishing, like the top end, there's just must be a lot of bugs for these fish to eat, or healthy ecosystems. Some of these smaller systems by me are just crazy good. And they hold like a bunch of, it can hold a 24-inch brown trout, no problem, in one of these smaller streams. And so a guy can't neglect that as well, getting out and wade fishing or boat fishing some of these smaller streams too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's, before I really started getting into, floating down these bigger rivers and that's all I did. It was, wade small streams, small creeks, and yeah, it's like I just started connecting the dots. It's like if this thing hooks up to this system and that system hooks up to that river system, there can be a big fish in here. And then I went at it like there were big fish in there, and it's like it's just amazing what what you can run into. And I mean, there's not a ton of secrets left anymore, but there are things that are less known, I guess, to say, for lack of a better term. But those, I am always keeping my eye out and going to check out new waters, and sometimes it's a bust, but sometimes you find a gem, and that's like today we're gonna go check out a new spot, and I think that it could hold a special one, so it'll be fun.
But yeah, good for you. So you're gonna go fish a new spot today. You got to take those chances on new spots, don't you? New river systems. Like sometimes I get so stuck in my ways of knowing good places and good holes, and I go to those rivers, and it's fun to go to the places but it's really fun to explore.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. You just hit it on the head, and that's probably right now my biggest issue is on my favorite stretches of river. No matter what system it is, I'm so stuck in my ways because I've seen a big one here or I've seen a big one there, and so that also makes it nice to go fish with someone else. But yeah, like today, I know going into it, we know nothing about it. We know nothing about it, so we just have to use what we know about reading water, holding water. Where are these fish gonna turn up at? And it's just yeah, that's the exciting. It's the adventure part of it. We could go out there and walk 4 or 5 miles and get our butts kicked and come back smelling like a skunk. But that's part of it. You just never know. And if you're not willing to step out of the box and not not catch a fish, possibly not catch a fish, you just never know what you're missing out on. So it always gets me really juiced. Like, shoot, this morning I was up at 4:30 tying bugs. Like, gosh, if there's a fish in that thing, this will probably move him, and it'll be exciting. But yeah, like you said, getting fishing your favorite stuff. I always try and take a step back and look at it a little different, and fish it just a little bit different, because I do get stuck in my ways, whether it's on the wade or on the boat, just from prior successes or seeing fish. And yeah, it's fun to go on an adventure and find some new water. So I'm looking forward to it.
Man, good on you. Yeah, I think I might get the same thing today. I see it snowing outside heavy, and we're trying to pour a foundation, so it's too cold to pour it, with tonight freezing or whatever. So yeah, I might have a free day today as well. But yeah, I've been exploring this system that I fished Oh, 10 years ago, I fished it hard, and I just ran over there last weekend, just screwing around. And yeah, it's a smaller system, but it was pretty fun just wading down there. And smaller systems are easier to read water. Sometimes these big rivers, the Missouri and the Yellowstone, like those things hold giant fish. Sometimes they can be tougher to read the water. Where the smaller streams, it gets to be a little bit more obvious where they're at, but gosh, I was just amazed at the numbers in some of the big fish that I saw chase, and I didn't, I saw a really good one came after me twice, but did not eat it. He just chased it around a little bit, but and I did hook like a decent one, a couple decent ones, but that'll make me go back there because I know those big fish are sitting in that system, and nobody's taken the time to go wade through it and fish a streamer through it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's the like you were saying, it's easier to find those fish in that smaller water, and I feel like getting off of say your home waters, the Yellowstone, whether it be the Madison, whatever, just something bigger, necking it down a little bit and getting down to those smaller creeks or streams, and it is more obvious where those fish hold, but I feel like you can brush up on your skills a little bit reading water, and then really start to dissect. Okay, this is where he was sitting, and then apply it the next time you go out, on a float or whatever, and like that type of water just registers fast, like, oh, this is that water that fish was in that small creek, and then boom, yeah, it's I love getting out every once in a while, and I probably don't do it enough anymore, just because I'm always on the hunt for the unicorn, the 30-inch gator faced fish, and I feel like I got a better chance in certain water than others, but I don't get out enough and walk those creeks. But yeah, like you said, it snowing here too, and we can't put any fence up. So yeah, I'm gonna get out there and brush up on the skills and do a little exploring.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah. Yeah, big systems can just grow big fish. And, I was surprised that the ecosystem, like just the heads of some of these systems, can hold some giants as well. But you just know they sit in that big water. But you're right, the skills transpose over from smaller water to bigger water and from bigger water to smaller water. And I was surprised I hadn't been in some place tight like that in a while. And it was like, oh, okay, now I remember I got to sneak up on the holes a little bit better. Some of this big water, you can just walk up, just humanoid, and go fish it. Where this smaller stuff, all of a sudden you see a big fish dart out of there, and you're like, man, I screwed that one up. Or, it like I could see him sitting in lines or whatever, and how to reach and fish those lines. And also like a lot of brush around and stuff too. I hadn't been hooked in a tree forever, and it was like, oh yeah, I can't back. It's all roll casting and front casting in this place. So yeah, sometimes it's good just to brush up on the skills. I'm like you. I like that big water, but I sit around like so many great systems, like the Beaverhead and Big Hole and Ruby. Those are great smaller systems that fish really well. So I like those along with the bigger systems, the Missouri and the Yellowstone, and the Madison's probably in between those I mentioned. But yeah, it's just a bunch of great systems around Montana.
Oh yeah, you're in the mecca. Oh my goodness, yeah. For me to get over into that stuff, it's 2.5, 3 hours, and it's right out your back door. I'm pretty jealous. I mean, we got some good stuff around here, but yeah, I think it was that picture that you sent me the other day. That looked like it was on that smaller system. Was that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Huh, cool. Do you, when you're in those smaller systems, do you size down a little bit on your bugs, or do you just keep throwing like what you would throw? I mean, as far as the streamer side of it, do you still keep throwing the same size bug that you throw, say, on the Madison?
Um, I do like a smaller bug in that system, but yeah, I threw a great big white one in there, just working a couple miles of that system. It's so nice because the wind doesn't blow as hard out of there. It's like usually 5-10 degrees warmer, and so this weekend with the cold front, I was just like, man, I'm just gonna go over there and wait around and see what I can do, just have some fun. But yeah, I threw a great big white is what I got that one to eat.
Yeah, that looked. That's why I asked, because I was like, goodness gracious, that thing looked like a big bug. I'm the same way. I usually like to, on those smaller creeks and streams, size down just a little bit. Just, I don't know, whether the sculpin or the bait fish in there. I don't know. I just, quote unquote match the hatch as far as, what's swimming around in there. But yeah, I was just kind of curious on that.
What do you think you're imitating most of the time? Like I saw you sent me a shot over of one of your bugs the other day. Dude, it is like that is the perfect streamer bug. I can tell you've been honing the craft of fishing streamers and working those things. Like I saw your bug and it was just like, man, oh man, I'd pay $20 to have a couple of those in my box for sure. But so you're fishing the one you sent me. I'm sure you're fishing a lot of different colors, but the one you sent me was a olive and white. Boy, that seems to be a good color around Montana, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. The last year I fished a lot of olive. I always kind of get. It's funny. I always kind of get stuck on a pattern or a color, because it's like you hit them one time and then it's just you keep believing in it, like the next one's going to eat it. But yeah, that olive and white, as far as what I'm imitating, I in my mind it's like say a juvenile, rainbow or something of that, size, shape, color. I mean, those sculpin are usually, they come in a lot of different colors, but not typically that olive top, white bottom, and it was pretty awesome the other day because that's really all I've been throwing. And I fish a lot of different colors depending on what river we're on or whatnot. But a buddy of mine caught one in the back, and we were like, "Oh man, he's got a sculpin already down the hatch." And he's taking out the fly, and I'm looking at the thing, and it was a baby rainbow, and just like a 6-inch rainbow. And so I'm looking at my bug, and I'm like, "Huh." And no wonder this thing might be working. It's like I usually fish more sculpin imitations, but I've been on the kick of seeing if they're just going to eat another fish.
I think you're right. That's what I've been theorizing lately is I'm just trying to figure out like what these big fish are eating in these spots. And I think they eat a lot of sculpin, and I like sculpin patterns, and that's what I think of that green and white. Like at least in our rivers, we get our sculpin are more olive than they are tan. I know what you're saying where they're tan in a lot of places, but I always thought it was a sculpin imitation. But then I start to go really big and articulating, and these giant flies like you're talking, and these fish are still eating it. So all of a sudden I'm thinking like, man, we are just we're imitating bait fish, we're imitating sculpin,
Yeah.
we're imitating anything that's moving through there. It's movement. I like a lot of movement in my bugs and flow to my bugs. Like I like them to look fishy. And then that green and white, why I think that does so good is it's just got that halfway line of a bait fish, that
Yeah.
dark
Yep.
versus white, that dark versus light on its side. It's got a lateral line like a lot of fish do. So just like you're saying, I think you were comparing your olive bug to that rainbow. Do I have that right, Dylan?
Yeah, that olive and white. Because
Yeah.
like you're saying, that dark top and that light colored bottom. Yeah, I think you're spot on, Brian.
Yeah, well, and I think that's why the white and grays do really good. Those are like a bright little bait fish too. Like I don't always get them on whites, but I am fishing that white color more often now.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you this, because shoot, half the time when I get in the boat, I tie it on and I'm believing in it until I'm just absolutely proven wrong. Because I mean, most of the time I'm not out there to just get them, by the numbers. I mean, there's days that I'd love to go do that and go wade nymph and do all that and just really get them. But I was gonna ask you, do you have a system as far as like when you walk out on the river, start with this color, progress to this color, and see what they're eating, or do you kind of just believe in what you're throwing and you just stick with it?
Okay. I think I'll answer it, and then I got to have you answer the same question. I don't think I'm tuned into it as well. I fished all different patterns, and I just kind of tie on what I believe in and what I think. Cloudy skies, I do better on the dark. I do better on the olive and better on the black. Sunny skies, I do better on the white or the green and white. And so I kind of base it on that. But then, like, I hear you talking when we were texting, we lined this up for the morning. So, because you had a fishing day and you were talking about a low system coming in. And you're right. I have another buddy that thinks that these giant fish eat on a low system coming in. I'm like, man, I'm not even tuned into that at all. And dude, to tell you the truth, I should really be keeping a diary. I think I lose more information by not writing it down, writing down the conditions. Then I just spend time fishing, and it's almost anecdotal what I tie on and why. But that's kind of my system. But I kind of tie on what I believe in. But I think it's based on the fish that I get to eat too, like the fish that eat my bug on certain days, and I hook 5 of them in a day off a white, and it's like, man, okay, what was it like today? And so the next time I tie on a white, I think it's going to be a 5-fish day, and so that's kind of my process, but I don't think I'm as honed in or dialed as you are on this system. So what's your system?
You know, by no means am I a rocket scientist when it comes to this, and to be honest with you, I'm pretty much the same way you are, in the fact that I like when there's like a low ceiling, cloud cover, dark skies. I'm a firm believer in dark. I really like dark, just because I think dark shows up in everything that you research and listen to, and you watch, get Kelly Gallup's videos and that. He says the same sort of thing, and so I've always bought into that. A lot of it depends on the day for me. If I tie on, first off, what I believe in, 100%. I don't care if it's sunny out or whatever. If I'm truly believing in it, I just tie it on, because it's like, at the end of the day, you got to hunt your bug, and you got to believe that that thing's down there swimming and he's going to move on it. But on the flip side of that, when I go to these smaller creeks and streams, like kind of my process of it and how and there's no, 1, 2, 3, 4, like as far as colors go. But I think I'm going to start, like say today, it's overcast, it's a little cool, low pressure moved in. I think I'm going to start with like black, like small black, and fish some really likely water with it, see if he moves. Okay. If I move one, great, I'm going to stick with it. If I don't, then I think I'm going to progress to the totally opposite end of the spectrum, to say white, and then see if that moves them. And then say white doesn't, then I think I'll go to, olive or yellow or a mixture of the both. But no, by no means, I don't think I don't have it down to science by any means. And I agree with you 100%. A guy should keep a diary, because you forget more things than you learn, you feel like, or at least I do. It's like the other day I just figured out what my favorite river fishes the best at, what flow, and it's like, how elementary is that? But it's like I never really even just, I always check the gauge, but then I really started looking and then going back through the dates of like pictures, and like, oh my goodness, there's a reason for all this. It's like not just complete blind luck. Like, this thing fishes good when it's like this. But yeah, as far as the streamers go, I'm the same as you in the way that I throw on what I believe in. But if there's someone else in the boat that doesn't have one that they believe in, I'm going to hand them one that's opposite of mine and be like, hey, you want to fish this one and see if this one works? I'll fish this one, see if it works, and we'll meet in the middle somewhere, just to find out, what they're moving on. Because I've been told, you might be having a good day on, say, white. You might be having a good day on white. But what if you would have put on olive? Would that good day be great? Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I was just curious if you had a progression as far as how that goes on streamers or swing bugs. Obviously Nymphin's a totally different deal, but yeah, the streamers, I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, that's good intel. I like how you go, like your process today, going black, small black first, then going white. Yeah, I'll mess with my sizes a little bit, and I do like a big bug, but I also like it like an easy digestible one too. Like you were talking sizing down for smaller streams. Sometimes that smaller sculpin, like it's just the right size and shape for the sculpin moving in that water, where they seem to eat that better than they will the big ones sometimes, So yeah, it is just changing it around and trying it out and seeing what's going to move on what bug. But yeah, I really like your process of that. Okay, so it is just on feel, and we should like really keep diaries, just like you're saying, the flow and when your system fishes good. Like this is all just knowledge. Like it's all just keying into this knowledge that's all out there, but you got to put it together. And experience is the best teacher, but it's only a teacher if you pay attention and if you learn, if you write it down or pay attention what was good that day. And I'm so into just like any day I have out, like I'm out enjoying myself. But man, I really should pay more attention to that and jot some of those things down, because some days are just better than others. And if you could key into that, you could call it and time it on different systems. So yeah, I mean, knowledge is key. We just keep gaining it and trying to pay attention to it as it comes.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I have a relative that lives down on this system, this river system that I like to fish. And if I kept a diary, he would probably be a lot more appreciative than my 5:30 a.m. text, like, "Hey, will you send me a picture of the color of the river today?" you know, I'm surprised he hasn't told me, "Hey, man, you should just have this learned up by now." Shoot. But no, yeah, it would definitely help. It'd be interesting. But yeah, usually that's the last thing I think of, to be honest. It's like you're out there and you're in it, and it's like the last thing I think about is getting done at the end of the day and writing things down.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Yeah, well, it is. Well, it's going hard, and experience, it goes into our instincts too. And so, like you talked about tying bugs on and your process, but just being out fishing and gaining that experience, and even if you don't catch anything, seeing where fish weren't, or where you moved one, or where why it wasn't fishing good, like that just all goes into your instincts. So the next time you make a call on which river you're gonna fish, which bug you're gonna fish, it's just playing on these hundreds and hundreds of days out trying to catch a big one. So like so it isn't that it's all forgotten or all lost. Like I should keep a journal for sure, or just pay attention to what's going on around me. But it's just good to be out fishing.
Oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, that honestly, like I was saying earlier, the one thing that I do is I go back and look through, say, pictures on my camera roll, and then I type it back into USGS and pull up the stream flow. What was it that day? Just interesting, things like that. And so I guess I don't keep a diary, but I do always kind of check back, like, oh, I remember this fish, in August. I wonder what the flow was that day, like stuff like that. And I think that's just part of building your knowledge and all that. And I think, going back to catching, these big browns and these big fish, I think a lot of it, it's a process, and there's no secret to it. I don't think. I think the secret is time. Time spent on the water, time spent at the vise, or just learning, walking the riverbank, doing whatever. I think time is the secret, and you have to be willing to put in the time, and you have to be willing to sacrifice, catching a few fish here and there, like we already talked about. But yeah, I am solely hooked on. I mean, I love, like I said, catching fish, but I love chasing those big browns and those big rainbows. And one of these days, the old 30-inch brown is going to give himself up, and I'm finally going to get to see him and touch him and see how big that adipose is. But I cannot wait for that day.
They're out there.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for mine too. But I love chasing these big fish just to be able to be out there. And I think that's the key. Experience is the best teacher. And, in fly fishing, like I compare it a lot to hunting because they're both huge parts of my life. And I know they're both huge parts of your life as you're successful big game hunter too. But the process of big game hunting, the training and working hard, and then, executing under the crunch and going hard during season, trying to find those bulls, like fishing. There isn't much training, even though being physically fit really helps you on long ore days, wading around, just not getting wore down day after day. But the grind of fishing, like it's all fun but you have to be self-motivated. You have to want to get out there day after day, or an afternoon here or there, because all those days, all that experience, that's what adds up. That's why you catch big fish. It's just because you've been honing your craft. You've been working at it for so long and seeing what fish are eating. And it's so fun to have this adventurous lifestyle and to be able to get a free day because it snows in Montana, and me and you are both on the river, swinging bugs. We may get them today, we may not, but eventually we will. And to keep believing in it and just getting out like every free day you have to go enjoy life to the fullest, because there is nothing more fun than having a fly rod or having a bow in my hands, and a guy's got to work hard and pay bills, but he's also got to play hard too, like your free time, your evenings are yours, your weekends are yours. For me and you, our snow days, or we've built these businesses now where, we can take a day here or there. It's our job as human beings and to enjoy this life is to take that day and to go fishing. But you definitely have to be self-motivated. There's a lot of excuses I can make. There's something I got to get done, and I take care of my responsibilities and I make sure I'm handled. But a lot of times I can just be more efficient and I can work in the evenings, or like right now, we're recording the podcast early morning so we can both get out, once it warms up and becomes a day. So like I just think I think experience is the best teacher, but I think the fly fishing, to really improve, you just have to be driven. You have to want to be out there, want to be out during adverse conditions, adverse weather. And I think that's what catches big fish.
Oh, I agree. I couldn't agree more. If you only fish on the days that it's 75, sunny, and no dub, you're not going to fish a lot. You have to be willing to be out there and, have your fingers get cold, your toes be cold, snot running down your nose. And I mean, it sounds super hardcore, but if you want to get to, if you want to hold that fish, if you want to hold that 2-footer, that true 2-footer, those are the things, you just got to do those things, and I mean, the biggest fish I've ever caught in my life, it was 5 degrees and I was throwing size 22 midges, but it was like, I knew I was going there that day. I knew everything was going to be right. And it was like, I got soaked, fell down, everything. And it's like, I caught that rainbow. And I was soaked up to my arms. I think my net was 23 inches at total length. Okay, and this fish, I don't know. I never taped it, but the thing was probably 32, 31 and a half, 30. It was humongous. And, I have this little dinky net, and it's like, it was either I scoop her head and grab her, drop my rod, grab my tail, and grab her tail and get soaked, or the fish of my dreams is gone, and it's like, you got to be willing to do the uncomfortable, the uncomfortable stuff if you want to get those big fish. And I love it. I'm probably a little crazy for it, both on hunting and fishing, but yeah, you're always one cast closer, and you're always one stock closer to getting that big fish and getting that next critter. So it's I can't get enough.
Man, that's like me. We're two kindred spirits. Dillon, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing. You have to come back on, man. You're always hunting these big browns and these systems. Man, your approach is so intelligent and you explain it so well. Man, it's been really fun.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for having me on. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, sorry if I went off on some tangents, but I just get so juiced talking about fishing and hunting, so I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no worries, dude. No, it was a great conversation. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, come back on the podcast. I'm gonna get you on the hunting side, as I know you're just as crazy about that. But yeah, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you. Thanks.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Fun conversation with Dillon. Man, oh man. That guy, he really knows fish around Montana. He's just a fishy dude, and he goes all over fishing and hunting, and he's just getting the most, living his best life here in Montana. So what a fun conversation. I really enjoyed that. So fishing's been good around here. Been fishing the Madison. There's been quite a few people on the Madison. I've been doing less sought after floats, or less popular floats on the Madison. Been going down to the lake, going up top. I fished in the people out of the boat from like Lions Down the other day, and we had to switch up and go kind of small, but we were finally able to get a handful of fish, fish that with Dad. But then been fishing some other systems around here, and then Sunday found him on that black streamer. Man, it was so much fun. Just really big fish eating, and it felt like golden dorado out in the stream as I just strip it and work these holes, and all of a sudden there just be this brown attack on that streamer. I get to see it go down. It's just so exciting. I get so fired up sometimes. Like when you kill a big buck or when you catch a big fish, you're supposed to act like that happens all the time and it's no big deal. But the fun for me is getting excited. So I think I I may or may not said some profanities to my dad as I was hooking those fish and playing them, and he caught some fish. It was just a blast. We were just having fun, but yeah, I gotta get back over there. So recorded a podcast last night, which is Monday. Get these podcasts out, get some work done. I've got to go put a floor on a house that I'm building, so go start working on that. But I'm hoping I can make another evening run or do maybe even sneak a day out of this week and get back over and fish those streamers. Maybe in that section, maybe even a different section, but I'm super pumped to be fishing right now in the springtime and already this year. It was my New Year's resolution to fish more as my days of fishing was getting lower and lower. And I think I was still getting a choice. I get a bunch of days on the water, 30 to 50 days on the water, but I bet you I have that already this year. So it's been really fun chasing these things around, just having a blast. Having a blast doing this podcast. So thank you guys for the support. The reviews and ratings really help on like iTunes or whatever podcast platform you guys are listening to. That helps me up. That iTunes is weird. It has 5 stars. You have to click on the right star. It's like Uber, and that gives you 5 stars. I saw somebody. I think every once in a while I get a 1-star rating by accident, but maybe not. Maybe that's on purpose. But man, I'm really enjoying doing this podcast. I also came up with, we've got social media, that Instagram came up with a page, Eastmans on the Fly. So I've been sharing some of my fishing and guests and things that are coming up in the podcast and that. But just want to continue to get on good guests and have good conversations and have some fun and share my journey while I'm out fly fishing as well. So thank you guys. I appreciate the support. I'll check in with you next week.